CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
Good evening. In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions. The majority in cases from Texas and Georgia said that the decision to end a pregnancy during the first 3 months belongs to the woman and her doctor, not the government. Thus, the anti-abortion laws of 46 states were rendered unconstitutional.
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chief Justice, Senator Cook, Mrs. Eisenhower, and my fellow citizens of this great and good country we share together. When we met here 4 years ago, America was bleak in spirit, depressed by the prospect of seemingly endless war abroad and of destructive conflict at home. As we meet here today, we stand on the threshold of a new era of peace in the world. The central question before us is, how shall we use that peace? Let us resolve that this era we are about to enter will not be what other post-war periods have so often been, a time of retreat and isolation that leads to stagnation at home and invites new danger abroad.
Oh, hello. You caught me cleaning up my desk. Oh my God, it was such a mess down here. Because, for one thing, I've been working on upgrading my equipment a little bit, and I did get a mixer board. But unfortunately, I'm going to sell the mic I have. I love the mic, and I think it sounds great. But it's not an XLR mic. And all the workarounds to use a USB mic with a mixer just aren't working out for me. So I'm getting another Blue Yeti, but I'm going to get the Blue Yeti that has both XLR and USB. So I have all these cables all over the place, and I'm trying to learn this. But, okay. It's so funny you caught me. Anyway, before we get started, that was an interesting clip, wasn't it? January 1973 was quite a month. The Watergate trials started. I couldn't find a good clip of that. I figured we'd deal with that separately. And then Roe versus Wade, obviously. And then, oh my God, my brain is slipping me, but it's in the newspaper that I used as a thumbnail for this video. A president, former president had passed away. And everything is so significant in January 73 that there's actually a book written called January 1973, and I ordered it because I think that will really help us understand what's going on. Anyway, an update here. Let me put this up. As usual, I'm always asking if you get something out of my content and you wish to support me, I would really, really appreciate you becoming a patron. And I've got some fantastic news. The Mises Caucus people have been wonderful. And I got a bunch of new patrons. And my first milestone on Patreon was $100 a month. And I'm $3 away from making that. So you could push me over the top if it's something that you're able to do. And I'm also asking people what time you prefer these time capsule things. I can't say I can accommodate it, but I will try. Because, I'm doing everything and doing this where I can. And also, some people have asked me for merchandise, with just some of the things I say, or just things that come up, maybe historical LP kind of stuff. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in, and I will design some stuff if it is. I know I am in the middle of designing some stuff for Cult of RONR, which is my other show if you don't know about it. We do daily devotions and Robert's Rules of Order. And if you need a crash course, that's the way to do it, in daily little bites. And we are making a shirt there. We're making the Call the Question Bitches shirt there. And I'm sure that will be popular. I want it. That's why I'm making it. And yeah, if you're the type of... I had somebody who actually unfriended me and complained and said the reason why I don't have as many patrons as I'd like is because I wore a shirt that said Bonjour Bitches on it. You know, I want patrons that appreciate a shirt that says Bonjour Bitches on it. I mean, seriously. Oh my goodness. I just couldn't believe it. You can't please everybody. You know. So anyway, let's get going with LP News. We're done with the commercial advertisements. And again, though, please give me feedback on those things. And I see D. Matt Plasik is here. Thank you. And as I usually remind people, if you can, you don't have to, obviously, but it benefits me if you watch on YouTube rather than on Facebook. But you know, again, totally up to you, only because I'm trying to get a certain number of view hours to be potentially, eligible for monetization, though I'll have to stop cussing if I get monetized, and I'm just not so sure I can do that, and I'm not sure I want to. You know, I like being genuine, and being phony baloney and plastic and fake is just something I'm not capable of. So let's go on to the issue. Here we go. So LP News, January, February 1973, number 12. Now, for 1973, they're doing it every other month. So that will allow me to get caught up. And when I say caught up, what I mean is my intention was always to be 50 years ahead. So for instance, March this year, I wanted to be doing March 1973, but we're almost there. And I'll get to it this month. But then we won't have another one till May, but I'll just do a bunch of bonus episodes. And I will have a set schedule then, once I'm caught up, for when we'll do these. And it'll be in the first week of every month. So May, you can expect it in the first week of the month. So let's continue here. One for the books. Now, I'm going to do a whole special episode on what they're talking about here, but let's get to it. Whatever may happen in the future, the Libertarian Party is now assured at least a passing mention in the history books. For on December 18th, 1972, Roger Lee McBride of Charlottesville, Virginia, a member of the successful slate of Nixon electors from that state, broke ranks and cast his electoral vote for Dr. John Hospice and Ms. Toni Nathan. As a result, the final results of the 1972 presidential election became officially recorded as Nixon 520, McGovern 17, and Hospice 1. Whoop, whoop. Wow. And the LP suddenly achieved instant national recognition, receiving coverage on all 3 TV networks and Newsweek and in papers all over the country. And my damn eyelash is messing with me. My goodness. Sorry about that. If you see me blinking a lot, that's why. I got an eyelash in my eye. And they're supposed to be external, not internal. Can you imagine the excitement? So I'm going to be doing a whole episode on the faithless elector McBride. And maybe getting into faithless electors in general. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about the controversies, maybe talk a bit about the Electoral College. Because I found people really appreciated the RCV episode I did, in which I really explained the nuts and bolts of RCV. And I think people really enjoy talking about the nuts and bolts of what goes on behind the scenes in politics. So I think the Electoral College would be very interesting. Plus, I'm going to research newspapers. I want to find some of this coverage. Wouldn't that be great to look at? Okay. Oh, and something else I wanted to tell you. I did, and wait till you see this video. If you guys think I can pump you up other times, oh my goodness, you got to see the speech I did for Liberty on the Rocks, man. Wayne said to me afterwards, "Whew, you turned on the rocket boosters to nitro for that speech." And I was so tired. I thought I was going to bomb. But instead, I was the bomb, which is good. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the video, though I have to tell you, I hate watching myself on video. It's embarrassing. I don't know why. But I guess I'll get used to it, but look for it. I'll let you know when it's out. You will enjoy it if you like seeing Spitfire, unapologetic, I hate the state libertarian. I'm that libertarian, right? All right, continuing. McBride, a lifelong Republican, announced his decision to switch from Nixon to Hospice by saying that it was an attempt to put principles ahead of party politics, explaining that he could not in good conscience vote for Nixon because he has moved the government toward ever greater control over the lives of us all, and that by doing what he did, he hoped to tell Nixon that he has lost his way. Oh, I want to comment, though, as well. Ooh, Nixon cleaned McGovern's clock. 5:20 to 17? Ooh, that's embarrassing. Oh my. Has any other been like that much of an ass beating? And the people actually liked Nixon? That guy looks like such a snake to me. The story of McBride's historic decision broke in newspapers across the country on the day that the electors met in their respective state capitals via a syndicated column by Nicholas von Hoffman of the Washington Post. And I will find that article. In his column, which was pro-McBride, good, von Hoffman discussed the implications of McBride's action in some depth and needled the GOP for its lack of perception and failing to recognize that Roger McBride was not just another party hack when they chose him to be a member of their Virginia slate of electors. Ironically, McBride was originally offered the position because he had written a book on the Electoral College. I'd like to find that book. And you guys, you are, oh, now David Davis came in because you're being silent. I like having the chatter. And David Davis, let me put this up here because I like everyone to enjoy the comments. He says, Reagan beat Mondale in 1984 by almost the same amount. Interesting. If someone wants to let Wikipedia do their research, I would love to know what those figures were, just for context, so that we're all learning stuff as we go. Rogers' commitment to libertarian ideals goes back much further than 1972. Incidentally, he is the grandson of noted libertarian writer Rose Wilder Lane. I did not know that. That is fantastic, isn't it? And was one of the founders of the Free Enterprise Society at Princeton during his college days in the late 1940s. His action, although not unprecedented, was of historical significance for several reasons. First, because there have been only 9 previous cases in the 150-year history of the Electoral College when an elector has jumped ship. Okay, let me, I'm getting over a cold, as you guys knew from last time, and I'm going to give you TMI. I'm always TMI. I'm now in the middle, and this is how much I love you, in the middle of a raging UTI that is just, it's like infected my whole system. I feel like shit. But I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Through rain and snow. Interesting on this as well. Has there been another faithless elector since 72? Or is he the 10th and final one? I don't remember if there have been other faithless electors. Weren't there some in 2016? Didn't somebody cast a vote for Ron Paul? Or am I like dreaming that? And then there was like a Native American woman that got a vote, an electoral college vote. Let me know if you know. Okay, and interestingly enough, 2 of them were Nixon electors in 1960 and 1968, making Nixon the only 3-time loser in history. That's funny. Second, because McBride's move made Toni Nathan the first and only woman ever to receive an electoral vote. And third, because the Hospice Nathan ticket is only the 7th minority party ticket to receive any electoral votes in this century. What were the others that received that? All this research I need to do. The communists and socialists, in contrast, have never received an electoral vote. That may change with the People's Party. As soon as the news of McBride's action went out, calls and letters began to pour into his Charlottesville office with Dr. Hospice, Ms. Nathan, and National LP also receiving quite a number. And yeah, I thought there was some in 2016. So I'll need to find that information and deal with that in my Faithless Elector bonus. Okay. And it says, oh, LP members everywhere were naturally elated, and many of them have tried to express the delight they felt upon first hearing of McBride's action. Nobody said it better than Sam Kasman of New York, who sent the following letter to Roger. We think he speaks for all of us. This is a fantastic letter. Put yourself in this person's shoes. We're so used to knowing things like, I don't know, we're in this information dense age. We can't picture like just sitting in front of the TV, like waiting for the stuff and not knowing about it. Like, you know what I mean? But let's do it. It says, Mr. Roger McBride, elector par excellence. Bravo. That is, I find it impossible to adequately describe the joy I felt or the whoop I let out upon hearing of your action on the Monday night CBS News. And I'm going to try to find that news clip. Here I was in my living room, and here it was all dark and gloomy outside. And here was Walter Cronkite doing what I've seen and heard him do so many times before. And then this, oh Jesus Christ. So the first thing I did was to yell and holler and clap my hands in disbelief. I could see myself doing that, man. And then I called some people I know who had either gone for Nixon with their nostrils stoppered, or who, like myself, had watched their Hospice write-in vanish into the obscure categories of void or scattered. And they all hollered some more and phoned some more people. It's all by phone then. No email, no social media. A bright network of non-believers for whom Christmas had come early. Amazing. What can I say to you? Who are you? Were you planning to do this all along? If not, what changed your mind? Do you still have a future in the Republican Party? Do we still have a future in the Libertarian Party? Oh, do we ever? I'm sending you some leaflets put out by our group here. Of course, you don't need propagandizing, but it's nice to see other people thinking what you're thinking. Psychological viability. Brandon, let's find where this continues. Page 3. Would call it. Let's put you guys where I'm at. Nope. Did I go too far? I think I did. Electoral notes, is that it? Is that page missing from here? Because I have it here. Wow, hold on. That is very alarming. I might be missing that page. No, here we go. All right, I was just hitting the button wrong. So up in the upper right-hand corner. Love, enjoy them. May they make you 1,000th of happy as you made us. Yours, Sam Kasman. And I'm going to read the following paragraphs after there, even though they're not part of the letter. As for the reactions of the establishment, they were predictably less ecstatic. We understand that when Spiro Agnew announced the official tally of when the electoral votes were counted in the U.S. Senate on January 6, he acted considerably less than pleased when he had to read off the one Hospice Nathan vote. All in all, Roger McBride's glorious gesture was a tremendous treat, the frosting on the whole 72 campaign cake, as it were. Many thanks, Roger. And what are you doing in 1976? And as you all know, he was our presidential candidate in 1976. So that is something, isn't it? So let's go back to page 2 where we were. There we go. Electoral reform, an opportunity for progress. Alrighty. As a result of Roger McBride's history-making action on December 18th. Interesting. Okay, I don't know all of these dates. I'm learning a lot. So they vote on, at least then, I think they do it later now. Doesn't the Electoral College come together later? Wasn't the... No, it might be December 18th again. Well, this was on December 18th. You guys in chat, you need to let me know, but I don't know. It happened on December 18th. The Libertarians didn't find out till January. Wow. There is once again a hue and cry throughout the land to abolish the Electoral College and have our presidents elected by direct popular vote. Every time things don't go one of the duopoly parties' way, they're always looking to change something. Listen, I want to see winners or people who have nothing to gain or don't think they have anything to gain championing reform. Otherwise, forget it. It's impure motives, and I don't trust none of them. Senator Birch Bay, Democrat, Indiana, has announced that he will reintroduce into Congress a proposed constitutional amendment to this effect. He tried this once before in 1969 and was nearly successful in getting the two-thirds majority in both houses that is necessary for a constitutional amendment to be formally sent to state legislatures for ratification. Wow! This time, it seems almost certain that the Bay Amendment will get through Congress and perhaps through state legislatures as well. I wonder how far that got. And I'm going to add this here. Mr. Abernathy, he says, "Evening, Madam Secretary. Looking forward to seeing you again at our Libertarian Party of South Dakota convention on the 20th. I was so thrilled to get that invitation. I've never been to the state of South Dakota and haven't obviously been to that convention, and it's my desire to be to everyone's convention at least once. So when I got the invitation, I was really, really excited. So thank you very much for inviting me. The honor is all mine. And anyone there, if your state parties are still looking for speakers, I'm available. Any dates that I'm not already booked. I'm going to be at the South Dakota Convention, the Pennsylvania Convention, the Wisconsin Convention, and the Florida Convention. For the Florida Convention, I'm also acting as their parliamentarian, so any of you guys who may need a parliamentarian, again, use my services. One reason I'm getting my registered parliamentarian certification is to volunteer my services to libertarian parties. I will never charge a libertarian party for parliamentarian services, though I do intend upon working part-time, at least as a parliamentarian to try to supplement income, but I will always donate my services to any libertarian party. That will be my gift to the party. All right. It is certainly debatable whether such a change would be a good thing. Oh, and I forgot. Obviously, I'm going to be at the Colorado convention. But they don't want me to help at all because a prophet is without honor in his own land. Oh, boy. It is certainly debatable whether such a change would be a good thing. Roger McBride, for one, has assembled cogent arguments to the effect that it would not. And I believe that it would not. I oppose the national popular vote. Nonetheless, since it now appears that direct election of presidents may well become a reality, we would be foolish not to try to take advantage of the current reform efforts to advance one of our own goals, namely, making it easier for minority parties to get on the ballot. The simplest way for us to achieve this goal, it seems to your editor, would be to persuade Senator Bay to, I'm assuming I'm pronouncing his name right, but you guys know I suck at pronouncing things, to add to his proposed amendment an additional section or sections containing the following provisions. Let's see, I don't know how I'll feel about this. That all minority parties whose presidential candidate received 1 million votes or more in a given presidential election shall automatically be entitled to have their presidential and vice presidential candidates listed on the ballots of all 50 states and the District of Columbia in the next election. I actually like that. Now, I know each state can do their own thing, and I'm very much into localization. But for the top-of-ticket national race, I do think there needs to be some kind of standardization because it's ridiculous. And I think all of the rest of the states have a vested interest in all of the other states, like a co-interest in seeing it standardized. Number 2, that all other minority parties shall be entitled to have their presidential and vice presidential candidates listed on the ballots of all 50 states and the District of Columbia by filing one petition containing 100,000 signatures with the Federal Election Commission, and that the FEC shall provide all necessary parties with the necessary petition forms at least 5 months prior to Election Day, allowing at least 2 months for the collection of signatures. I like that too. Wow. This would be nice, wouldn't it? That only those presidential candidates who are granted ballot listings under one of those two provisions shall be regarded as real presidential candidates, in the sense of being eligible to receive media time under the equal time provision and being required to file campaign expenditure reports with the various authorities. I wouldn't use the word real, because anyone who runs is real. And we don't have to worry about the equal time thing anymore, but that was an issue back then. And the LP really struggled in its conscience whether they should demand the equal time, because they felt, it is using government force in some way. But I understand the struggle, but I would demand the equal time. This arrangement would obviously be of great benefit to us and to other minority parties in two respects. First, it would eliminate the tremendous hassle of having to get on each state's ballot separately. And second, it would multiply our effective vote-getting potential by a factor of approximately 10. An analysis of the number of votes received by our candidates and those of other minority parties last November reveals that being on the ballot increases a minority party's candidate vote total tenfold compared to a write-in effort, obviously. Thus, we strongly urge each and every one of you to write to Senator Bay, urging him to add these provisions and stating that you will work actively on behalf of his amendment if and only if he does so. Copies should be sent to your own senators and congressmen and to your local newspapers. This is probably the most important thing you can do to advance the cause of the Libertarian Party this year. So even if you don't do a single other thing this year, take the time to make this one effort. So they were willing to throw their support behind the national popular vote if it had these amendments. And I don't know that I wouldn't do the same thing. Because, the major party candidates will spend all their time in California, and, the states, the big states were the most population, but then we would have good shots in the states they're ignoring tactically. But putting aside Libertarian Party interests, just as a person living in this country, I don't like the national popular vote. What are y'all's feelings on it? Oh, the Southern in me just came out. Sorry. Well, not sorry, but I mean, y'all might not. Oh, I did it again. I am from the South, before I came to Colorado. All right. Now, obviously, the fact that these provisions will help minority parties isn't going to cut much ice with Senator Bay and his colleagues. However, there are a number of points which can be made that should have some effect on them. Some of them are given below, and you might wish to cite one or more of them using your own words in your letter, along with any others that you can think of. A. The present system discriminates against those Americans who do not favor either of the two major parties. In effect, it denies them of their right to vote for the candidates of their choice. And there are an increasing number of people who fall into this category. In the 1972 presidential election, a record-breaking 44% of those eligible to vote did not do so. B. As the constantly increasing no-vote figure indicates, people are becoming more and more frustrated with our system of government. And the more difficult it is for people to express their discontents through the peaceful means of voting, the more likely they are to turn to non-peaceful means. That is true. Thus, making it easier for minority parties to get on the ballot will help cool things off. D. The present system, in effect, grants a monopoly to the two major parties. If there were an industry in which two companies had managed to place legal blocks to entry on the part of competitors, the government would never allow the situation to persist. So why should the two major parties be allowed to do it? I never even thought of it like under a anti-competitive thing. Wow. Can I do that again? Wow. Ugh. D. As things currently stand, there is no uniformity in the various states' ballots. Some list only the two major parties. Others list up to 7 minor parties last time. This means that people in different states are in effect voting on a different basis, even though they're voting on the same offices. We don't have different ballots in each county of a given state for the statewide races, e.g. senator. So why should the requirements for listing for national office vary from state to state? I absolutely agree with that. Okay, next. Is that right? Yeah. E. The system described above is fair and reasonable, in that it makes it possible for parties with a fair amount of support to get on the ballot, but eliminates crank candidates with only a handful of followers. F. The provision that only candidates qualifying for 50-state listing be eligible for equal time and required to submit expenditure reports would eliminate a great deal of work for the FCC and the FEC and would make it easier for the media to know which candidates to cover, i.e. only those who had a significant number of supporters. G. If a few minority parties were on the ballot, and probably no more than 4 or 5 would qualify, it would give the major parties a good idea of how well they were responding to the desires of the American people. The larger number of votes the minority parties drew, the better an indication there would be that the major parties were out of touch with the people, and this feedback would enable them to change their own positions. Furthermore, if all significant minority parties are on the ballot, they will not be able to claim to speak for more people than they actually do represent, saying only a fraction of our supporters were allowed to vote for us. That is probably the only point that would persuade a duopoly senator. And that's arguments I gave for RCV. There are probably other points which can be raised with equal effectiveness. If you can think of any, by all means use them. The most important thing is to write to Senator Bay now, before his amendment gets approved by Congress in its present form, and get as many other people as you can to write also. And when I drink too much soda, then I get all burpy. So what do y'all think of that? Good ideas all around, I think. Green sheet update. They used to include something that was literally a green sheet that had all of the contact information for the various state parties. We used to do that with LP News for years, and then they stopped. I think at least once a year, LP News should have that green sheet. All right, there's address changes. We don't need to worry about that. So there's chairs here whose address has changed. So the National Secretary, Diana Amsden, who was the founder of the Libertarian Party of New Mexico. She's now a staunch Republican. She was an objectivist, big Ayn Rand follower, but she's still alive. And I wrote her, but hadn't gotten a response back. I wrote her asking if she had any early party material, or that I'd just like to speak with her and pick her brain. Nevada, David Lizio. New York, Jerome Klassman. Ohio, Kay Haroff. So now, though, there are new state chairmen in Alaska, Grant C. LaPointe, Florida, Joel P. Wiener, and Oregon, James C. Casterline. Just so that you guys know, if you're curious, I have been updating Elpedia with the information I mine out of here. So some of the state parties are getting some of their past officers filled in. All right, underneath the picture of Roger, spotlight on state parties. The Arizona party will hold a convention on February 24th to adopt a constitution and bylaws and elect officers. 66 delegates were registered at last count. Their laws were obviously different then, because now Arizona has some of the weirdest laws for their convention. only state committeemen can be, or precinct committeemen can be delegates. It's really weird. And they have to have their convention like on the last weekend of January. All right. With a number of observers and guests also expected to attend. New Jersey is also planning a convention for that date with 30 plus expected. Louisiana held its convention on January 13th with 21 delegates present. Press coverage was good. No word in yet from Hawaii, which also had its convention scheduled for January. And let me put this information David Davis got for us. So, 1976 election, Washington elector Mike Patton pledged for the Republicans Gerald Ford and Bob Dole. Cast his presidential electoral vote for Ronald Reagan, who had challenged Ford for the Republican nomination. He cast his vice presidential vote as pledge for Dole. That is interesting on how he split his vote. Awesome, thank you. Okay, continuing. Okay, Alaska Convention planned for February 17th through 19th. Brr. They hope to have Tony Nathan as a guest speaker. Alaska, incidentally, had the highest per capita vote for the Hospice Nathan ticket of any write-in state. New Hampshire was second. Georgianne Trammell of Texas will be representing the LP at the upcoming get-together of the National Women's Political Caucus. She tried to get Tony Nathan a speaking spot, but they were already booked up. They should have made space for her. She was historic. Illinois recently hosted Tibor Machan in a presentation on human rights held at Loyola University. Turnout was approximately 100. Next project, an investment seminar, went emphasis on gold. They hope to have nationally known speakers and draw in members of the business community. In New York, Sanford P. Cohen has already announced for the 74 race in the 25th district, Poughkeepsie. New York now has a real office too. Alrighty. This is a long issue, but we always do the political perspective as a bonus, so we will not be covering that here. That will be a bonus. Okay, bits and pieces, and that there's actually 2 more pages, so this is a long one, but we'll get through it. I mean, I'm enjoying it, but I just like warning you all, this is a bigger issue than normal. The Liberty Amendment, and that is another thing I need to do a bonus show on. The Liberty Amendment was a really neat thing, but it died on the vine. Enclosed with this issue, you will find a card giving the full text of the proposed Liberty Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and a brief summary of what its passage would accomplish economically. The Liberty Amendment is endorsed in our 72 platform and has been described by no less an authority than Murray Rothbard as magnificently libertarian. The Liberty Amendment Committee, which is the organization behind this proposal, is, depending on how you look at it, either the most libertarian of the conservative groups in America or the most conservative of the libertarian groups. We highly recommend the Liberty Amendment as a project for state LPs in this non-election year and suggest that all interested LP members contact the LAC to find out who to get in touch with. LA supporters should be good prospects for recruitment as well. Yeah, that Liberty Amendment was, we'll talk about that. The young pay for the old and nothing ever changes. That's the title of a revealing article in the January 14th issue of New York Times Magazine, dealing with the myths of Social Security. Its author, a liberal, debunks the old lie that SS is an insurance program and says it's time we openly admit that it's nothing more than another tax. A tax on the young to support the old. He happens to favor the whole idea of Social Security, but the article is a good source of ammunition for arguments against it, especially considering where it appeared. And by the way, that little card that had the Liberty Amendment, that wasn't included in this issue that I have. It's lost to time, at least so far. Libertarian Posters. A series of high-quality posters dealing with issues ranging from ecology to free enterprise is now being offered by the Campus Studies Institute. Wow, every time in here I'm like, oh, I wish I could order those. And here's another thing I wish I could order, a Libertarian Calendar. A very professionally executed calendar featuring photos of libertarian heroes and giving the dates of over 250 historical events of interest is available from the Laissez-Faire bookstore in New York. The pages for the month of June feature a photo of the 1972 LP campaign material in commemoration of our first national convention. Boy, I would love to see that. Then it says, medical care is a right, ... A refutation by Robert M. Sade is reprinted from the New England Journal of Medicine by the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. I'd like to see that as well. 73 convention to be held in Cleveland, June 8th through 10th. Cleveland, Ohio has been selected as the site of this year's national convention as reported in the last newsletter. This year's get-together will occur on June 8th, 9th, and 10th. Reserve those dates now. Full details on accommodations, program, and registration will be in the next newsletter. So as you know, they were having yearly conventions then. Membership renewal notices and subscription expiration notices are being mailed to those of you whose memberships and subscriptions are due for renewal as of this issue. Those of you who don't receive one this time will receive it when the appropriate time arrives. We hope that each and every one of you will renew your membership and bring in an extra member or two with you. A little help from our friends. We would like to belatedly thank Against the Wall for their endorsement of the Hospice Nathan ticket and also for their reprinting of the entire platform in their issue number 2. I think I might have that. I have some issues of Against the Wall, so I'll have to see if I have that one. We have also received many inquiries as a result of a mention of the party in the international Harry Schultz letter. Our economic and gold positions were cited. Life members. Since our last report, we have 2 new life members and 1 life-sustaining member, and I've been keeping track of all the originals on Elpedia. In addition to holding life memberships, Freeman Fox, what a name, of Arizona, and Edmund Kontoski of Minnesota are serving as chairman of their respective states. Bruce Cameron of Arizona is our new life-sustaining member. We offer special thanks to these 3 individuals for their support. And then, correction concerning Rand letter. The following statement has been submitted by Paul Hodgkin, who I believe was an at-large member of the National Committee. The Executive Committee motion for a letter to Ayn Rand called for a reply to her recent criticisms and attacks on the LP, and specified the questions of A, prematurity of political action, B, LP opposition to RMN, what is RM? Oh, Richard M. Nixon, and validity of LP principles and objectives, and whether she would reconsider supporting our effort to provide a principled alternative to statism while there is still time. And then there's a quote, I'm not sure, I guess Paul Hodgkin this is what he's saying. I don't propose to point out her inconsistencies in endorsing Nixon per se, or to ask her to explain her position. CF last newsletter. That would be an exercise in futility. I hardly expect her to even read the letter, which I have drafted if it is sent. It is a statement for the record. Okay. Now, here is something that's a little bit different than we have today, too. $1 less for the government, $1 more for the party. This year, for the first time, you have the opportunity to keep $1 of your taxes out of Uncle Sam's pockets and put it in the Libertarian Party's treasury. With your 1972 federal income tax forms, you will find included a new item, Form 4875, a piece of paper you can fill out and attach to your other forms to let the feds know that $1 of the money they are stealing from you is not to be put into the general boodle basket. I've never even heard that phrase. I'm going to have to look that up. But rather, it is to be set aside in a special fund to be dispersed to the 1976 presidential candidates. All you have to do is fill in Libertarian Party in the appropriate blank, supply your name, blah, blah, blah. Don't pass up this opportunity to make Uncle Sam $1 poorer and the LP $1 richer. So back then, you could specify a party it would go to, and it would just go to them. That's much different than it is today. Though I will take a point of difference with David Nolan here. The government never gets $1 poorer. If they needed that dollar, they'd just steal an additional dollar elsewhere. So you never take money from the government. But you could have just said this is a way to support the LP and make the government send it to us. But he's not correct. You're going to make the government $1 poorer. Latest Hospice Nathan vote figures. Several members have written to National HQ asking us to explain the discrepancy between our estimate of 5,000 votes cast for the Hospice Nathan ticket last November and the figure of 2,648 reported in a UPI story set out late December. And David asked, did the LP get any of that money? I don't know. It will probably be reported in LP News and we'll learn. This is the first I knew that things were different back then. I think it's in Arizona or Utah. There's something similar on their state returns where the LP gets a certain amount of money. And then what they do, I don't really know how it works, but I know what they've done in the past is they generated media with it by offering to give everyone their dollar back. Because it wasn't earmarked. I think like it got split amongst everybody and it's just stolen from people or something like that. But yeah, they'd say swing by our office and we'll give you your dollar back. All right. The 2,648 figure represents only the votes received by Hospice and Nathan in the two states where the LP was on the ballot. 1,537 in Washington and 1,111 in Colorado. In addition, we now have the following figures for write-ins. California, 980. Texas, 394. New Hampshire, 142. Wisconsin, 101. Alaska, 68. Illinois, 46. Massachusetts, 43. Missouri, 25. And Utah, 19. These bring the total to 4,466. We also know that in many states, e.g. New York, our write-ins were not counted at all, and that in others, they were tallied only sporadically. Thus, we feel confident that the actual total number cast was over 5,000, although we will never know exactly how many for sure. The exact number is unimportant in any case. We were not trying to roll up votes, but rather to spread libertarian ideas and lay the groundwork for effective political action in future years, and in these respects, we succeeded. We suggest that if anyone asks you how many votes we got in 72, you simply say approximately 5,000 and let it go at that. The truth about Congress, or at least an approximation, therefore, can be gleaned from two recently issued score sheets. In the November issue of the Radical Libertarian Forum, there is a tally of the Senate based on 45 unidentified votes, and in the October 25th issue of the Conservative Review of the News, there are ratings of members in both houses based on 10 identified votes in each case. Comparing the two Senate tallies, we find that 6 of the LF's top 11 are the same 6 as 6 of the RN's top 11. These are Byrd, Fannin, Curtis, Buckley, Hansen, and Jordan. LF's other 5 are Roth, Irvin, Dominic, Proxmire, and Brock, while RN gives the nod to Tower, Stennis, Bennett, Allen, and Gambrill. LF's 6 worst are Inouye, McIntyre, Williams, Jackson, Stevens, and Stafford, all of whom also score very poorly, 20% or less on the RN tally. Both LF and RN give low to abysmal ratings to a majority of the Senate. Although these ratings are probably not 100% in accordance with those we would assign if we made our own tally, they give a rough indication of who the best and worst cases are. Fortunately, we will not have to rely on second-hand appraisals much longer. Eric Scott Royce, our Region 7 Executive Committee member, has volunteered to compile ratings of both houses from now on, and we will thus have our own report card starting later this year. All right, the last column. Yep. Sharing the responsibilities. And David let us know that race was 525 to 13. So let me look back on this first page here. And Nixon was 520 to 17. So it's about the same. Interesting. We'll have to do a percentage within a few percentage points, I think. Thank you very much, David. The LP has now grown to the point that we cannot efficiently handle all national business out of our Westminster office, because their Westminster office was David Nolan's living room. For this reason, each member of the National Executive Committee has been assigned certain responsibilities. Some of these assignments are purely internal, administrative in nature, but several are the sort of thing that you, the members, can be of help in performing. Fundraising. D. Frank Robinson, he's the OG, will be working on ways to raise money for the party. If you have any ideas or know of someone who might be a good bet for a big contribution, contact Frank. How about y'all who are listening to this, just shoot a message over to D. Frank Robinson and tell him how much you appreciate him. Press relations. Mark Frazier of Massachusetts will be handling our nation press releases, I think he meant national, from now on. If you know of any libertarian-leaning people in media, send their name and address to Mark. VIP letters. Liz Jacobson and John Taylor in California will be writing letters to any public figure who seems to be a good prospect for conversion to libertarianism. Anytime you hear or read of someone who looks like a good prospect, send all available info to John or Liz. Addresses of the above are on your green sheet. And then it says LP News is published now bi-monthly by the National Office of the Libertarian Party. David Nolan, editor. Subscription, $2 for 6 issues, and base circulation this issue 1029. That's up from last issue. Okay, that's it. Woof. That was good. So I always, stick around to see if there are comments, because I love to interact with the comments if there are any. So I will give that a few minutes. But in the meantime, we can get some business out of the way. So once again, I do ask that if you get something out of my work, please consider becoming a patron. I am $3 shy of my goal, of my monthly goal, and I did make a graphic. Here are my current patrons. Check it out. Give you a bit to read that. There are some who's who on there, and I couldn't be more honored to have these folks as my patrons, and I would love to put your name there. And we are now doing some patron-only stuff. I just finished the Judge Gray book, All Rise, and we are starting Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail, 1972, for our discussion. All right, it doesn't look like there's any additional comments. I'll give it one more minute, wet my whistle here. Otherwise, we will have probably 3 bonus episodes for this one. And before the end of March, we will do the March-April issue of LP News, and then spend April doing bonus episodes. And May, the first week, we will be all caught up. Yay! Okay, everyone, I hope you have an awesome night. I am getting ready for a shadow bylaws committee meeting. And yeah, you have a good one. Love you all. Bye-bye.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business. Not